And now let's move to the morning session, which is a continuation of yesterday. And today's session is called Creativity in Social Work. I would like to welcome 3 speakers. First one of them is Mrs. Jana Levická. She's a scientific researcher. She currently works at the Department of Social Services at the University of Social Sciences in Trnava in Slovakia. She also cooperates with other universities on an international level. In the Czech Republic, it is, for example, Hradec Králové University. She's a researcher. She's editor at the journal Social Services. Mrs. Levická is going to speak about how to introduce pandemics as a certain situation that brings about not just issues into our lives, but also some opportunities. Mrs. Levická, the floor is yours.
So, hello, good morning. So, dear ladies, dear gentlemen, allow me to greet you from Black Trnava city. What does it mean? At our district, we have the highest numbers of COVID cases. Despite that, I have to say that there is no reason not to solve troubles, since we are living in a crisis, but we should look also for positive aspect of the crisis, and we may use it to look together at the opportunities brought to us by crisis as social workers, and for me as university lecturers, and also derived lesson learned. When COVID-19 pandemic hit Slovakia at the end of last year, we only had a very blurred idea about the pandemic. Almost nobody in Slovakia had experienced the pandemic like that with such an extent before. And we were taught that not easy period is ahead of us, and it may take 2 to 3 years. Nevertheless, I'm quite optimistic. So Slovakia had lived through 1 year of pandemic, so maybe only 2 years are ahead of us, maybe 1, I don't know. Slovakia, once the first wave of pandemic hit us, well, when it spread to other countries, in Slovakia, we had a feeling that it will not impact us, because the previous government of the Prime Minister Pellegrini just implemented harsh measures, and there are almost no cases of COVID-19 in Slovakia. We were thinking that simply pandemic will not impact us, similarly to other serious severe diseases that were spreading throughout the world. And the statistic analytics tried to explain us that, in fact, already in October, we should have about 500,000 of ill people and so many number of dead persons. Fortunately, it was not true. But the truth is that in media, they were always explaining us a threat. And in fact, the population of Slovakia were terrorized by such threats constantly being presented by media. So in fact, I have to say that Slovaks then obeyed all those measures that were introduced to us, despite the fact that we just observed all those rules. In Slovak language, we call it ROR, which stands for hands, masks, and mouth. Well, there were not enough masks available in the markets, and disinfection agents also were not possible to find in the shops. So we were constantly presented through media that in fact there is no material available in the state warehouses, and that's why it is not possible to deliver face masks to the market for citizens and even to the hospitals. Then a lot of citizens started to volunteer in social services and in community social work as well. In fact, what happened then? We wanted to help, and we started we converted ourselves into little manufacturing workshops, creating own face masks. Then we were sewing it, stitching it. We then when distributed it within the field outreach social work to those that were neglected in the first wave, to homeless people, in fact. I'm terribly sorry to say it, but I have to share with you one information. Our TV yesterday presented one of the most absurd, weird message I have ever heard. In Bratislava, one homeless person was granted a penalty of €100 because he didn't stay in his household, in his home, after 8 p.m. So I just only wonder what we can face, what the pandemic can teach us. Our students had explained to us that, in fact, it is not enough to face masks for the social services facilities, then distributing it maybe through charities and so on. But we were aware that we have to also focus on homeless persons. Nobody paid attention to them in the first wave, including our government and including local governments, city councils. Then we also had to ensure secure safeguard for those people. And I'm not talking about homeless people now. A lot of other products such as toilet paper or napkins or disinfecting agents. And of course we tried to distribute disinfection agents throughout the city. It disappeared in 30 minutes. People just took it. And there were activities surprised us. I have to say we were not prepared for it, but we extended our activities by other fields of activities. For instance, nowadays we also walk dogs, or we shop for elderly, or we just deliver some materials to lonely households and so on. We started to work as a bridging agents between students, and I'm talking also about students studying in distant ways and organizations that were seeking for help. And I'm talking also about the city councils or city councils from small villages that didn't have jobs for the other job descriptions. For instance, in small villages, if a mayor is employed part-time, and then if such a mayor should ensure all the services to deliver shopping to elderly people 75 plus, because they were told to stay at home. So such mayors will not cope without the help of the volunteers and social workers. Standard way of cooperation, and I have to say There were creative forms of leaflets. We distributed it to citizens. They just could list what they need to buy in pharmacies or supermarkets. A lot of young people were involved, and not only students of social work, generally younger generation, 16 plus. And I was really pleasantly surprised that a lot of adults, 30, 35, 40, and even older, were also helping. And some of them that started to help in the first wave are still with us and keep helping. Of course, in the first wave, we are still surrounded by the pandemic, even though in Slovakia we have felt the false feeling of security, safety, despite all the social workers that were involved. But a lot of people criticized us, saying that those helpers have nothing to do because they were put to home offices and they tried to find self-determination and self-esteem through helping, unfortunately. But we, as social workers, we still have not need to present our profession in media. So I feel that sometimes social workers are just happy knowing we are doing our work well, and we don't have to publish our successes in media. But unfortunately, as we have seen throughout the pandemic in countries even like in the UK or USA, promotion of social work is not used sufficiently. I can just manifest it on my experience from my study trip to Taiwan, where my colleague told me during tsunami, when they helped to a lot of people, and in Taiwan then they were just informing publics through media how they were helping, and those informations shared with the general public, in fact, changed the perception of general public on the profession of social worker. So I would like to invite you to use as much as we can such promotion also. We should promote our work, stating that our profession is useful. We are doing a lot for the society, and currently we are at the 6th or 7th position in the hierarchy of professions perceived by the society. Speaking about some troubles related with technical issues and supply. After 2 to 3 months, I have to say the logistics become big burden, especially for people who were really lonely, isolated, alone in their apartments. And the Slovak public society, in fact, responded really well. A lot of online lines were launched, similarly to other countries. Those lines were free of charge. Some of them was helping 24 hours a day. For instance, I was myself involved in the Endless helpline in Trnava city. It worked 24 hours a day, including Sundays and Saturdays. And we had 54 professional volunteers working there for this line. And for the first time, I have to say I have experienced quite warm and friendly community of professionals, psychologists, social workers that really tried to help those who call to this line to cope with this period. Unfortunately, after 3 months, our partner, Society O2, terminated the cooperation and stated that Fortunately, in the meantime, in Slovakia, 7 to 8 helplines were launched in Slovakia that work as free of charge helplines and provide assistance to clients to overcome the feeling of social loneliness. What I had experienced in the first wave was something excellent. In fact, it was kind of solidarity brought back to life, revived. And in fact, when one research was focused on social solidarity and intergenerational solidarity together with our Czech Republic colleagues, we found out that up to 22% out of 1,600 people felt that they contribute sufficiently to the social insurance. And by doing so, they thought they already perform the duty of being socially responsible, fulfilling the duty of social solidarity. And unfortunately, they were thinking that by contributing to the state social insurance, they are fulfilling the duties towards their old parents already, unfortunately. Then social insurance was perceived as a source of false security, of social safety security. And really, 22% stands for 1/5 of the portfolio of our respondents. They perceive that contribution to social insurance is perceived as a replacement of their personal activities or personal duties to do something for parents and so on, feeling that everything should be delivered by the state. So in the first wave of the pandemic, I have seen kind of revived social solidarity, social solidarity brought back to life. And it was good that people were willing to work in the testing centers, testing tents, even though that we didn't know what risks we will be exposed to. So I'm really quite grateful for that. One of my favorite pictures now from the first wave is our external student that together with his son is distributing orders and collecting orders for shopping from seniors. And sometimes entire family were involved. For instance, mother cooked some meal, let's say goulash, and they were delivering it to seniors and so on. So it was really great. For instance, people themselves proactively contacted us asking if we know about some lonely person needing help. So then we moved to second wave of pandemic, and the second wave of pandemic, unfortunately, it seemed that it triggered in the social services facilities in Slovakia. It was triggered. It started. Even though there were different crisis management plans made in the social services facilities, but it was proven that if you create such crisis plans while living in the safe and secure environment, then in fact such plans are not very useful because you don't know what risks you will be encountering later on. So in fact the social isolation was really difficult. For instance, the facilities unfortunately were not helped sufficiently. I had the chance to be in touch with some managers, directors. I deeply respect them. I deeply respect their flexibility to solve issues day to day. Just an example, for instance, in Slovakia, I tried to find the waste bags for waste, because for instance, one facility faced troubles with the waste collecting services of the city. They refused to take away waste because the social services facility did not have the standardized waste bags. So we were looking for those standardized waste bags because we didn't want to accumulate the waste in this social service facility. It's just a minor detail, but just an example to tell you what kind of different issues employees or managers in the social services facilities had to cope with. And it just was about a simple hygiene waste bags. We solved it. But I just wanted to share this experience with you to demonstrate that a lot of issues had to be solved. And for instance, at the Association of Educators in Social Work, the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs contacted the association, and they invited us to coordinate volunteers for the facilities that had COVID infection among their clients. And I have to say that we in Slovakia don't have students at our association. We as association, in fact, have teachers and academicians from the social work area as our members. But then, in cooperation, we have prepared one document signed by the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs and our director on behalf of our association of the educators in social works. We signed a memorandum, and we created a distribution network database of students that were willing to help in the social services facilities once they need their help. How does it work? The ministry contact us. We have reported number of students to the database and the district where the student lives in. So the ministry then contacts the school of the student, and a contract on volunteering is signed, and the student is sent as a volunteer to the social services facility needing help. What ministry wanted us to do, we were asked to respect this volunteer help in case that students needs to study in practice also within the year of study, then we were told that we should accept such volunteering as professional practice in the field. So we, of course, agreed with that because it's a great opportunity for students to see how facilities work in crisis, how employees face fatigue, tiredness, and maybe the burnout syndrome, how they cope with clients that are scared. And it's not possible to simulate such situation. Unfortunately, we will not need it anymore. But this was seen as one of the trouble when I communicated with the facilities, when I asked them how the social services facilities cope with everyday troubles. And I have to say that one student, even though it was not true for all students, so one student said that before they had some lessons about management, also crisis management and so on, but they still felt a deficit of crisis management, stress management, and advocacy. And students recommended us to consider whether we should reflect this in the future period into our study programs, curriculum. Yeah, definitely we will do that. We want to do that. And what I also think it's important in the educational environment, we should also incorporate the care in time of crisis, not only during the pandemic, but I think it is necessary to pay attention also to such a scheme. I have noted for me as a university teacher, we should also enrich it by working with media. Because, for instance, if you bring newest information to the media, what is happening and where, then I have to say that in one of the social service facilities, they have identified, I don't know, 10 to 15 clients with COVID, and after there were media's press present in front of the doors of the social facility. They wished to make interviews and so on. So I really didn't like that. So we should really incorporate into our study programs also the specialty how to work with media, because we don't want to add stress to management and employees of the social services related to press media, asking them to enter the facility and criticizing them that they are not willing to let them in and so on. And of course, protection of the vulnerable individuals is still appreciated value and principle that should be true not only in social work. So in Slovakia, for instance, this also is true for social work. You probably know that yesterday our Minister of Labor and Social Affairs resigned. And I think that now, when you really have to work with the social facilities and you have to be ready for, let's say, third wave, so I think this is not the best approach to resign now. And Sen was saying that all crises impacting society as such also disrupt moral values of the society. So also the helping professions are not impacted only, but in fact all helping professions, not only social workers, are impacted. So they should stand on the side of protecting human rights and protecting the vulnerable ones. For instance, if you are seriously ill and you cannot breathe, then of course you don't want to be presented in media probably, but on the other hand, such person is entitled to proper care and treatment. So what I also think the pandemic gave us the feeling of being together. We need to create the sense of belonging as the professionals. So it must be really important for facilities those people working there should be not only professionally educated, capable, but they should also know what to do in crisis, what is needed, what is less needed in crisis, and so on. And I'm also sharing it to students that we should prepare students for practice. They should also see the practice in these social services facilities. They should really be aware of all the troubles they will have to solve. They should not think they will just solve their narrow professional interests. For instance, some students learned how to operate huge washing machines and so on. And it was really useful also in the time of isolation. So I strongly believe that this crisis will strengthen us as professionals. And if we meet, let's say, in 1 year time, we will know about better examples to share. And we will become an inclusive society. That means a society of people that care for each other and are interested in each other. So I have a feeling that this was a feedback learned from the pandemic. So we had realized that this is also important. Not only personal benefits are important, or personal career or financial issues, but humanity. Once missing in the society, once we miss personal contacts, then the society will lose something extremely precious. I would like to thank you for your attention. I think I have covered time dedicated to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution. We heard a lot that the pandemic is a great test of humanity, and hopefully we're going to pass this test. And I also thank you for ending on a positive note, that that's something that's going to teach us something for the future about relationships between people. In the discussion, we don't have a direct question, but it's all praise. That it's a great reflection on the human creativity at the era of pandemics. Also that you merge the academic approach with practice, that it's not highly specialized speech, but it's a description of things as they were. And in the whole pandemics, we don't really have time to monitor the detailed news. And what we hear from Slovakia is what we know from the Czech Republic. So thank you very much for your contribution. And I would like to thank you for having me, for the opportunity to speak. And I really think that this pandemic is showing or displaying our profession in the light that we wanted to see it, as a profession of people who are really big-hearted, ready to help. And I hope that we can make a profile in the public sector as well. Thank you. Now I would like to say goodbye to the Professor Levická.